Winter Rose, written by Panwadee, Ponglada K, Ittimakin, Episode 13. The sound of a gunshot had suddenly seared the silence. The four-wheel drive car immediately went out of control and turned over at the side of the road. Instinct made Enrique look quickly at Irie. He was alarmed to see her slumped over in her seatbelt and soaked in fresh crimson blood. The sound of a motorbike leaving and escaping down a small overgrown road reverberated in the air. Enrique's attention was focused on Irie as he cradled her unconscious body in his strong arms. He blamed himself bitterly for abruptly pulling on the steering wheel to avoid the motorbike ridden by two men in black that had cut in front of them. He felt relief when, bending over her, he could still hear her heart beating and feel her pulse. "If anything happens to you, I will never forgive myself," he said softly to the unconscious girl in his arms, struggling to open the door of the overturned car and carry her out. As luck would have it, another vehicle was approaching. Seeing the accident, the driver pulled over to the side of the road, got out of his car and rushed over. "What happened? Is anybody injured?" A police tunnel man with tan skin asked. Enrique glanced at the blood soaking into his shirt sleeve, where the broken glass had cut his right arm as he had pulled on the steering wheel. "There's nothing much wrong with me, but I have to get this girl to a hospital quickly." "Okay, let's go." The man helped carry Irie to his car. Enrique cradled her unconscious body tenderly in his arms all the way to the hospital and looked on anxiously as the nurse took her to the casualty unit. Only then did he become aware of the pain in his own injured arm, which the shock and his concern for Irie had made him completely forget. He went with a white uniformed nurse to have his wound cleaned and dressed. Then he came back and waited in front of the operating theater. "Where am I?" said Irie when she regained consciousness and saw Enrique's worried face leaning over her, with no trace of jesting to be seen. "Our car was shot at as we were driving through the plantations. The doctor has operated to get the bullet out of your left shoulder, and you have a wound in your leg where the glass from the shadow windscreen cut you as the car overturned. That will soon heal. I haven't been able to get in touch with your brother yet. I'm determined to." Irie interrupted him before he could finish. "Don't let Cody know about this. He would worry so much. I'm not in any danger now." When she had been sick in hospital before, her brother had rushed to her bedside. This time, she didn't want him to leave his job and his own family to visit her, even if only for one day. "What do you want me to do if you have to stay here for a month?" asked Enrique, his face showing his indecision. Cody was his friend. This was his friend's sister. "Let me deal with it. If that is what you want, I won't interfere." Enrique unwillingly agreed, adding to himself, "What is the girl thinking of to hide the fact that she is injured in hospital from her brother? I don't understand. If she's afraid of her brother, we worry That's normal for brother and sister. She should not feel so obliged to him. Anyway, one day I will get to understand better. This girl with her Oriental and Western features. He is so. Thank you. I was grateful to Enrique for agreeing, but his still worried expression made her try to divert his attention. Who shot at us? It's a long story, and one that directly concerns me. It's unfortunate that you were with me and got shot at instead of me. When you are better, I will tell you the details. Now, you should rest. Don't talk too much. I will stay here all the time, so you don't need to worry about anything. All the time Enrique was speaking, I felt the warmth of his large hand clasping hers. It was easy for her to follow his advice as her eyes felt heavy and she soon drifted off into sleep. Several days later, she rose herself from sleep only to find that Enrique was no longer there. She suddenly felt lonely, unlike before, when he had always been inside. Taken aback by her own feelings, she hurried to assure herself that she would no longer feel like this when she had left hospital before pressing the button to call a nurse. What do you want, Senor Rita Rodriguez? Inquired the nurse, her white uniform making her skin look very dusky. Her broad smile contrasted to Iris' pale, startled face as she hurried to correct her. I'm not Senor Rodriguez's wife. It was now the nurse's turn to look startled. He has been so concerned about you and at your bedside all the time, so everyone assumed you were his wife. Besides, that is the name on your hospital records. He took advantage of me like this. When I was unconscious, Irie angrily muttered to herself. Did he say where he was going? Irie changed the subject, asking what she had originally wanted to know. Senor Enrique said that he was going to make a report to the police and that he would come to take you out of the hospital this afternoon. You must be hungry. I will go and get you some lunch. I won't be long. The nurse went out of the room, leaving Irie rigid with anger that everyone here had misunderstood their relationship, but looking at it in another way. Surely it could not have been intentional on his part, with the list of gossip spreading to Monica, the woman he loved and intended to marry, even though she had a child from her previous marriage. Irie felt a twinge of disappointment and failed to understand herself even more than before. I have never been envious of other people's happiness. Stop thinking like this, Irie. She commanded herself. When he comes back, I will really give him what for. He took advantage of me, she said, her eyes burning with rage. Fancy taking advantage of me like that. Enrique was taken aback to be attacked as soon as he opened the door of her room. What on earth's wrong now? He demanded. Don't make out you don't know. I object to the fact that you have led anyone here to understand that we are. She did not dare to say any more, but forced herself to complete the sentence. Husband and wife. His face and eyes broke into smiles, making Irie even more angry. This lie has distressed me. I'm sorry, but it was necessary. Everything happened so quickly. I couldn't remember your real name or your surname. Your passport was in your bag in the car. What do you want me to do to make you feel better? Tell me. I will go and tell everyone that there's nothing between us, if that's what you want. He stared at Irie for a moment before continuing. I guarantee that the thing that has made you lose your honor will not spread any further than this. It will be a secret. After this, I will stay far away from you, so nobody will have a chance to misunderstand. I feel better to hear you admit that you were in the wrong and that you have apologized to me. Good. Then we can go home. Ivy allowed him to help her into the wheelchair as her left shoulder was still tightly bandaged. The wound on her leg had almost healed, but she still could not walk as normal. Enrique pushed her wheelchair to the car in front of the hospital where Ricardo was waiting. As he helped her into the car, his physical proximity made Iris' heart pound. I'm crazy. This man belongs to another woman. Before long, he will get married to the beautiful Monica. Why should I go to jelly over him? If I were to tell Hillary about this, she would laugh for sure. Iris turned away her face to hide her feelings, and when she was safely in the car, looked out of the window all the time. Enrique was also silent. The car entered the plantation through a gate in the white fence, emblazoned with the name Rodriguez in large letters, before following a narrow road lined with green coffee bushes, spangled with white flowers. The beauty of the place came from the grandeur of nature itself. In accordance with the owner's wishes that it should be a country estate, the car stopped in front of a large white house with an orange tile roof standing prominently in the middle of the extensive plantation. It resembled his big house in Sao Paulo, but was clearly a lot older. The three of them walked through the grand doorway into the spacious entrance hall. All the furniture in the room, tables and chairs, was made from a local Brazilian wood called jacaranda. The handmade carpet on the gleaming red and gold wooden floor was embellished with Amazon Indian designs. On the walls and in the corners were hanging plants with decorative foliage and flowers, reflecting the culture of the Portuguese, who always liked to have beautiful gardens and plants around their homes. Irene looked around the room. A wooden window frame, decorated with a navy blue motif, arrested her attention. She could not help admiring the owner of the house for still cherishing local Portuguese folk art, even though he was so rich and could buy anything that he wanted. What a beautiful home, I commented to Ricardo. Sasa, my wife, decorated it, Ricardo said with pride. You will meet her later. Before he had even finished speaking, Ivy heard the sound of approaching footsteps. A fat, dark-skinned maid, dressed in subdued colors, with an apron tied around her waist, came out of the sitting room. She was in her early 50s, but her loveliness made her look a lot younger. She smiled warmly when she saw Enrique's tall figure standing near the sofa where Ivy was sitting. She had not intended to sit while everyone else was still standing, but her leg was still not fully recovered, and she needed to rest when she could. Why? You have come here again, Senor Enrique. It has been a long time since we last met. The woman greeted Enrique warmly before catching a glimpse of Irie. Vanita, this is my friend Irie. She will stay here for a while until she has recovered from her injuries. If she is your friend, Senor, then she is welcome to stay as long as she wants. Vanita instantly accepted her boss friend and treated her with affection even though they had only just met. Unobserved, Vanita examined the expression in Enrique's eyes as he looked at Irie, becoming convinced that he had some special feeling for this young woman. Muito obrigada, Irie shyly said. Muito obrigada, Irie shyly said. Thank you, in the Portuguese phrase, with which she was already familiar, causing everyone to smile at her. Causing everyone to smile at her charm. Is Senora Sasa not at home? Enrique asked. Senora Sasa has gone into town. She said that if Senor Ricardo came back, he should go and pick her up. I will have to excuse myself then. Make yourself at home, Irie, Ricardo said, hurrying off. Come this way. I have already prepared a room for you. Vanita hurried to help Irie, but Enrique beat her to it. Don't worry, I will help her myself. His large strong hand supported her as he led her into a spacious bedroom fitted with simple but sturdy furnishings that indicated that it was a man's domain. The white bed, wardrobe, and dressing table were all made from the local rosewood, polished until it was gleaming. Sit down first, Enrique said, sitting down himself on the chair at the side of the bed. The manners of the flirtatious, teasing playboy had been replaced by courtesy and politeness, and it seemed that he was intent on honoring the promise he had given her before leaving hospital. Irie felt relieved and confident again and able to speak to him frankly. You promised that you would tell me more about the accident. Irie reminded him. Enrique seemed uncertain at first, but then seemed to decide to concede to her request. The police have already arrested those responsible. They were paid hitmen hired by my rival to intimidate me. Irie became even more interested. Innocently, she had never thought that enemies would resort to shooting and killing. Do you remember that I told you I had some business to attend to the day we arrived in Sao Paulo? Irie cast her thoughts back. A week had passed since then, during which she had been injured and in hospital. Yes, I remember. That day, I went to put in a bid for a telephone line and communication system to an Italian company owned by the Matarazzo family. Many people of standing saw my name on the list, and they questioned me until they found out that my great-great-grandfather was an old friend of the founder of the empire. They had immigrated to Sao Paulo together 100 years ago. I told them that when I was a little kid, my father used to tell me that the first Matarazzo came here empty-handed and earned a living by selling lard in the neighborhood. By his grandchildren's day, everything had changed. and they were factory owners. I tendered my bid honestly, with no budgeting her, no illegal bribes given to the officials. I'm really opposed to this. I'm really opposed to this kind of corruption, which makes the price cheaper than the other bidders. We shouldn't have to give bribes all around, right? The people in authority agreed with me, and it seemed that my company had won the bid. So a rival company paid for those men to shoot me. They thought that I would be afraid of losing my life, but I have got to this point already. So I refuse to give in to such threat. His eyes, which moments before had been so soft and tender, had become hard and stern, revealing a fighter who was determined to win. I really appreciated his dilemma and left concern and felt concern in her heart, but said nothing to challenge him, knowing that she would be bound to lose. I really asked to be excused from going down for dinner. Everyone understood, and Banita, the maid, brought her meal up to her room. People here usually use Portuguese in their daily life, and so the Spanish that Ivy had studied back in her high school days in America now helped her to communicate with Banita, though falteringly. Talking to Banita, I learned that she had been employed here for a long time. Her duties were to cook the meals, so everyone called her Quituteria, or the kitchen woman. My ancestor came from West Africa. Banita confided Mary. They were sold into slavery to work in the sugarcane plantations, while the women worked as servants in the house. That was hundreds of years ago, in the days of Pedro Alvarez Cabral, who came here in 1500. Many generations have passed since then, but we still remain here. In 1888, we were given our freedom, but volunteered to stay. The name Alvarez is the oldest and most prominent name in the country. Her face and eyes clearly show her pride. Senor Enrique also has Portuguese blood from Senor Bredo. He still used the middle name Alvarez, although his sister, Senora Zaza, has taken the family name of her husband, Senor Ricardo. Why is Enrique's face not like average Portuguese? I inquired. Banita hesitated a little before answering. The father of Senor Enrique and Senora Zaza was the descendant of an Italian who immigrated to Sao Paulo at the time of its founding, more than 100 years ago. At that time, the government wanted Europeans and yellow-skinned Asians to come and help Sao Paulo develop, so they lured them by selling them land cheaply and paying all their travel expenses. Many Germans, Italians, and yellow-skinned Japanese came. Senor Enrique inherits his white skin and dark hair, his handsome looks, and tall physique, also different from ordinary Latinos, from his Italian ancestry on his father's side. Don't tell anybody that I have told you this story, especially not Senor Enrique. He would be very angry if he knew. He doesn't like anyone to talk about this matter. Bonita came closer to her as she continued, whispering, "When he was a child, Senor Enrique really hated having Italian ancestry. Things only got better when he came back from America. Maybe it was just because he had grown up. Strange. Why did Enrique hate his own Italian heritage? I mused. He should have been proud of it. Italians are artists, passionate, and never forgive their enemies. Portuguese are fighters and adventurers, brave, fiercely proud of their own honor. Senor Enrique, our Les Rodriguez, has iterated both legacies fully and equally." Iris kept her thoughts to herself, thinking that when Bonita knew her better, she would volunteer to tell her more than this. "I think everyone will have finished eating. Please excuse me. Muito obrigada. Thank you for staying with me." Later that evening, I waited until everybody had gone to bed before going to phone her brother. Hovering into the sitting room, she was surprised to find that Enrique was already speaking on the phone, completely unaware that someone else had entered the room. Iris felt silent, and although she did not intend to eavesdrop, she could not avoid doing so. Enrique's face was strained as Iris overheard him saying in English, in an attempt to prevent other people in the house understanding. "Don't get upset, Monica. Everything will be fine when I get there." Monica must have said more because his face became even more serious. Iris could only wonder what had caused Monica to call late at night like this, and she tried not to want to know. It was normal for people in love to have things to talk about. She was absorbed in her own thoughts when she heard Enrique saying good night. As he put down the phone and turned towards Iris, clearly in dilemma about something. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were on the phone. I have just finished. Go ahead." After giving her permission to use the phone, Iris was surprised that Enrique did not leave the room. She felt that she could not speak freely, knowing he was there. Finally, however, she tried not to care. If he wants to overhear, then let him, she declared to herself. She explained in full to her brother that she had to stay longer. She had to stay longer in Sao Paulo, asking him to give her love to her sister-in-law Pamela, as well as to Jared and Felicia, before making a second call to Jake, her friend, who had just arrived in Rio. "Jake, I have missed you. When did you arrive?" Iris greeted her friend warmly. The affectionate tone of her voice upset Enrique, and he hurried out of the room without staying to talk to her, as he had originally intended. "We will meet tomorrow in Sao Paulo then." "Jake, miss you a lot. Bye." Putting the phone down, Iris was surprised to find herself alone in the room, unaware as to when Enrique had left. Knowing that her close friend would be with her the following day and stop her from being lonely made her forget everything else and go back to her room smiling happily. The sound of a car engine starting in the early morning, before it was light, made Iris open her eyes. She had no idea who would be driving off at such an early hour, and thought no more of it until Bonita brought her breakfast to her room. "Who left so early? I heard the sound of a car leaving." "Who? Why?" "Senor Enrique. He has gone back to Rio. He said he had some urgent business to attend to there. It's always like this, coming here for a short time, then leaving. Before he left, he instructed me to take good care of you. What kind of a person is he? Why did he leave without telling me? Don't I mean anything to him? Ivy thought to herself, not wanting Vanita to see that anything was amiss.